friend, who is anxious because he loves an alcoholic and doesn't quite know how to keep his big fat mouth shut, says, as this nice person is bringing a tray of sherry past us, my friend says, "You can't have any of that." Until that moment, I had no intention of having any of it. But I was challenged, And I reached out, I took one of those, and I slammed it back, and maybe I had a second or a third. I remember I had to get out of that very polite, friendly place and get a bottle and go to my room and, to quote Dr. Bob, finish the job. So that's what I'm like. I went to meetings. I didn't drink. I didn't use. I went to meetings. I didn't drink. I didn't use. I got a big book. I had no idea what to do about it. Went to meetings. I didn't drink. And little by little by little, I started waking up and coming out of the fog, they call it, and coming to, and it wasn't pleasant and it wasn't friendly. And I remember being very angry. My first feelings are rage, followed by anger, followed by rage, followed by exhaustion. And I think that's the first 18 months of my recovery. And I went to meetings where you could swear and say inappropriate things and hang out with bad people. And I liked that a lot. I was sober a year, and I finished my studies at Berkeley, and I was supposed to be ordained a priest that year, but don't make a major change. So my ordination was held up for a year, and you need to do something. So I went back to teach, and I went to Los Angeles. Now, here's the rule. Wherever you get sober is where they do it right. And if you go anywhere else, it's a crisis because they don't do it right. They don't read the book right, they don't do birthdays right, or they do birthdays, or they do all this stuff. So I wrote the Archbishop of Los Angeles, and I said, I'm coming down, I'm a sober person, I'll be at Loyola High School, and I said, are there any priests down there who are sober? Because I would like to hang out with some. And he wrote me back and said, welcome, I'll be glad to see you. And when you get to town, call Terry R. And Terry, who is still my sponsor, he's a sober Monsignor. There are very few of them. He... Catholic joke, I apologize. It has to do with the Avignon papacy, and who cares? It's very complicated. When you're in an old church, there's a lot of weird that happens, and you have to explain it to Protestants. But it's kind of like knighthood. So I get to LA on a Friday, I go to a meeting, I go to 2 meetings on Saturday, 2 meetings on Sunday. Monday morning I call Terry and I say, I'm in town, I got a letter from the cardinal, they gave me your name. And he said, when did you get in? He said, Friday. He said, have you been to a meeting? I said, I've been to 5. I said, I need a sponsor. I didn't know what he looked like, I didn't know what he drove, I didn't know who he voted for. The big questions of recovery. And he said, I'll be your sponsor. There's a meeting tonight, and I'll pick you up. And he only lived about a mile from me. So, which in Los Angeles is intimacy. It was only a mile. So I started going to meetings down there. And here's my internal process. I don't like anybody, and I don't like anything. The meetings are too big. They're too flashy. They have greeters at the door. God help us. And they clap. They clap constantly. They clap all the way through it. At this particular meeting called the White Flag Men's Stag, which has Skid Row people, disbarred attorneys, doctors not allowed to practice, writers and jazz musicians. That's the group that gathers there. And a couple of clergy. They all sit in a circle. Everybody talks. Everybody shares some golden insight. And then they clap for every single person. And I was just driven. Anyway, I went to that meeting, everybody in that area. And I went to other meetings and I had huge groups of people. And I wasn't making friends, and I wasn't relaxing, and I wasn't liking it. And I didn't know what to do. I'm just getting acquainted with me. I'm in my second year of recovery, and I'm back in the classroom now. I had never taught sober in my life. I've taught drunk and I've taught sober. It is easier to teach drinking. I had no tools to deal with stresses and strains and anxiety. And I had just gone to meetings, didn't drink, didn't use. Gone to meetings, but I need to develop some other tools. And I only learn new stuff when I have to. When I'm bleeding and on fire, you've got my attention. So I started learning things like telephone, and I started learning things like talking to my sponsor. I mean, what are they for, you know? I had one in Berkeley whom I loved. I could just sit next to him, and it was safer. And my world isn't a very safe place. I mean, there's a lot of awful out there. I still think like that. I have not become an optimist just because I'm sober. I consider myself a pessimist with a good attitude. That's what I consider myself. But I get bleak, you know, in 3 thoughts. Boom, 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 I'm bleak. So what do you talk to your sponsor about? Well, I finally said to him, after I'd been there 6 or 8 months, I said, deep secret confession, I'm not making friends. Are there any small meetings in Southern California? Big, you know. And he said, try a big book study. They are always small. And I think that's in our bylaws. So I looked at the meeting directory, and 1,000 meetings a week, Los Angeles County. There was a big book study meeting in a Korean church on Olympic Boulevard, Friday nights at 8. And I started going there, and there were 12 to 18 regulars. I was just turned 30, and these people were in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. And over the next year, they became my first friends. People I could hang out with a little bit, not a lot. Look forward to have conversations with. And my sponsor would regularly come to that meeting too, and I got a chance to see him. And I still like to see him. I was, this past year, I was speaking somewhere at a convention in Bakersfield, which is about an hour and a half from LA. It's in the desert area. And I suddenly realized I'm an hour and a half from my sponsor, and I could stand to see him. So I called him. I said, "Are you home?" "Yeah, can I come and see you? Just to see you. You know, I've only been sober 34 years, and I feel safer when I sit next to you, and can we have lunch?" And then we talk about stuff. Some of the stuff that comes up, you know. I thought I would be over resentments by now. No, fresh ones come. So I slowly learned how to do it differently. I'm still not a clapper. But I can go to meetings where people clap and I don't have to hate it. I just live and let live, you know. You go clap. And with so many meetings, going to different places and I find that every so often I'll hate a meeting. Well, there are other meetings to go to. Pretty steadily over the last years, I've gone to meetings. And I just don't go, I want to participate. I want to hang out regularly. Oh, God. All right. I was at a meeting recently, and I hated everybody in the room. Idiots. Fools. Inappropriate sharing. So I called my sponsor, and I said, I think I'm done with meetings. What I wanted him to say was, you are so spiritually advanced, you don't need to go to meetings anymore. You can just think about yourself, and be fine. So I'm at the computer, so I can type a few of these things down. And I said, I just hate it, and I hate everybody. And here's what he said, and this isn't quite accurate, but it's close. He said, the suffering we go through at meetings when people share in inappropriate, narcissistic, and awful ways, that suffering purifies the soul like nothing else. See, I don't want to hear that. We have one guy at my home group, whenever he shares, I go to the bathroom because he's so awful. He says the same 5 stupid things every week. The same for years. And now I wait to pee until he's done sharing. Now I'm hoping for some purification and some growth. So I lived in LA for 4 more years, and then it was time to leave. I got tired of teaching. What happened was I stopped liking the kids, and that means it's time to leave. Also, I was teaching. I was surrounded by young people. I'm getting older. I have no Al-Anon program yet at all, so I'm not able to set boundaries or let go or detach. I'm involved in all the crazy, and I don't like the kids, I don't like their music, and I don't like what they're watching on TV. And that means it's time to get a new job, is what it means. So I moved up to Oakland and did different kinds of things, and I found I got a job as an administrator and fundraiser for an agency in West Oakland, and I was there for 3 years. And my first time as an administrator and a fundraiser and the hirer and the firer, and I found that I learned things I never wanted to know. Boy, was that an uncomfortable 3 years. And I had to develop tools that the program gives us to deal with great discomfort and exhaustion and conflict, learning how to live life on life's terms, which is not an easy experience for me. I heard this at a meeting. Someone mentioned it yesterday, that alcoholism is a lot like dancing with a gorilla. You're not done dancing until the gorilla is done dancing. And I like that image because it talks about lack of power. I like a good gorilla. I think some gorillas are great fun. But when the gorilla gets his arms around me, the gorilla's in charge. And the gorilla will have you do things you never thought you'd do. It kills a lot of us. I didn't notice that till I was about 10 years sober. But a lot of people do the gorilla one more time and end up dead. One of my pals in Vegas says, I don't want to dance with the gorilla, I just want to pet it a little bit. If you're clean and sober today, it means the gorilla has let go. You didn't beat it. Even though you're smarter, even though